alive in love and relating. So this is my line of work. My best place to find me and get benefit from all the content, free content that I put out is Instagram. And it's literally at anfisa.shimkevich. You'll find all my offers and all the juiciness there.
So I guess my first question for you is because I've learned this myself, so maybe there's people out there who haven't learned it. Why intimacy and relationships?
What do you mean for me? Why I chose to.
How, yeah, how did you get involved in it and how does it impact your life?
Yeah, so the journey was very organic. I was in the wellness realm already, but like any white person trying to find their way through spirituality in the Western world, that is like, it doesn't have real roots, right? It's kind of hard. It's hard to get to the juice of it, to the root of what is actually here. And I kind of journeyed through cacao ceremonies, working with people through cacao after a couple of years of my own journey. And then my journey evolved to realizing that something is missing from all of the self love work, which is incredible. All of this shadow healing, right? Getting on board with all the parts of ourselves that we don't feel comfortable with. And yet there was still something missing, something that couldn't root my life into a daily joyful existence, a rooted experience of fulfillment in my life, because my emotional cycles were still up and down. I was still going through really self-doubting myself, wondering why I'm here, and all of those big questions that hit really home. And well, my life itself pushed me to, through my own relationship, to look at all the things that kept coming up. It's like, why do I lose my desire for my partner? Why do we keep fighting about this? I've had a child now. I feel weird in my sexuality being a mother and then transitioning to being a wife. Like, how do you do this in a way that lasts? And the self love work wasn't helping anymore. There was something else here, and I was avoiding the subject of sexuality for quite some time, feeling weird in my own body because of my upbringing and my asexual family that pretended that this part of life just doesn't exist. So I basically picked up all my courage and decided to go and study it and do a certification in that. And first of all, like, dive deep into my own experience and my own journey. And that was through practices, through my own lived experience of exploring monogamy, non-monogamy, open relating. Like, how does this all work? You know, fucking up a lot, getting hurt a lot, but also learning so much to then come out the other end with lived knowledge, with lived experience compressed in a couple of years of intensity, and realizing that, wow, this is the thing. This integration of sexuality, reframe of sexuality, my own connection to this realm of my life was something that was missing. And I saw how, because this part of our life is so suppressed in society, like before we started to talk, you're like, nobody talks about sex and sexuality, right? Like, if you talk to anyone while you have a partner, people are like, oh my god, why? Like, talk to your partner. It's weird. So it's a big taboo subject. But underneath, there is so much juice, liberation, fulfillment, happiness, and secrets to a fulfilling love life, sex life, partnership with the people you love.
Do you think we're missing out on the juicier parts of sexuality, like the emotions, the connections, and everything in between?
As humans, yes, I was actually writing a post today about the power of sober sex that our society doesn't benefit from. We have a drink and then we wait for that moment to feel in the mood for intimacy, or calmed enough by the deliciousness of alcohol in our system so that we can finally, drop in and engage with our partner, men, women, everyone. And our society sees this as normal. Everyone does it, right? We go out for a drink and then we see how it goes. And when this starts to become a habit, we start to lose the ability to feel and read the space, read ourselves and read our partner in their non-verbal communication. It's so easy to miss the cue that a partner just needs that extra few minutes of gaze and touch to feel safe in this encounter. It's so easy to miss a boundary of ours and go a little bit too fast into the makeout and forget that, right, like we didn't speak about safe sex and this is super important for me, and now I'm halfway through this whole thing and now I don't know, do I speak now? No, I don't. And then it's like slave betrayal, and it becomes hard, and there's a lot of self-guilt and all of those heavy things that we don't need. So in a sober encounter, we have the ability not only to read deeper ourselves and our partner, but also have a co-regulation happening. Because we're humans, we live through stress our whole day, life. And when we come into genuine, intimate encounters, present, dropped in, sober, clear mind, we have the ability to digest our stressors, digest our life. And this is what creates more space in our mind. It creates more space in our feeling. And then we have more pleasure. We have deeper orgasms. We have this sense of fulfillment from the sexual encounter. It's no longer the surfacey like friction that gets us the juicy release, but it rewards us with aliveness. It rewards us with this deep feeling of fulfillment.
When you mentioned alcohol and you mentioned sober, it reminded me of this woman that I knew way back. And anytime she hung out, she would always ask me, "So, Torian, you got to drink, right?" I was like, "No, I don't drink. I used to brush it off." And then we went out a couple of other times, and I know you watch this sometimes, so I apologize for telling this story in advance. But I began to realize that, oh, this is her way of suggesting that we have sex. But I didn't catch on because my rule was if I'm going to engage in that type of in the levels of intimacy, I want to have a clear mind, sober mind. I want my partner to do the same. But some other people, to your point, they need it because it's what gives them the courage. We call it liquid courage, right? Let me get some alcohol in my system or whatever, and now I'm courageous to say, Train, take off your pants and let's get busy, right? Versus before, I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't say that. God forbid.
Literally.
Right? Literally, right? So once I began to understand how people use other things to get what they want, my eyes was clearer. And that's why when you said sober and you said alcohol, I began to pay attention. I was like, yeah, there's people who do go out to the nightclubs and things like that and they hook up. And maybe if they didn't go there, they wouldn't be hooking up with those people. But then when I asked her about her relationships, when she was sober, she was less engaging in sexual acts. So do you think then, what do you think about some people using it as a crutch to engage or maybe satisfy that partner where they're like, hold up, Train, hold up, Anfisa, let me go to the washroom, grab something, and then come back and now I'm ready. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think everything is okay in this life. It starts being a problem when that becomes your crutch for walking. Like, you can't walk without the crutch of alcohol. You can't have sex without the crutch of alcohol. This is when there, in my perception and in my own experience, because I was that person a while ago, I had to smoke something, drink something, take something, and then I'd engage, right? But before, in my sober self, it just felt so freaking scary. And in my own experience, it was because my daily avatar, so the Anfisa you'll meet on the street, will be smiley, she'll be polite, she will accommodate you, she will ask you about who you are. I'm a warm, like, bubbly and radiant person. But then my sexual self that was emerging, she was different. So I don't know how it was with the woman that you told me the story about, how she was when she was just in her daily life and how she was in bed. So you can let me know that. But I realized that my sexual self was different. She was like, I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to not think about what the people around me will think. She was much more radical and naughty and slutty, and it was just like, oh my god, no, this cannot exist in society. What do you mean? Like a slutty woman? No, you can't be a slutty woman in society. You'll be seen differently, you won't be given a job, you'll be judged, you won't belong, you won't be loved, you won't be safe. So you can't be that. So seeing that part of me and realizing that she's got all of these qualities that are super judged, it was just terrifying to be her, to admit that I am me, that I am this sexual avatar, because it just felt so uncomfortable to my personality of who I thought I was. I was this warm, there's no problems around me, I'm a peacekeeper, but the other side was like, fuck the rules, we don't care. And I was like, how do I hold? Like, I care about my daily avatar much more than my sexual part, so let's just leave that on the side and not engage with that. And this was my experience, right? Leaving that on the side. So when I wanted it, I was like, okay, alcohol, drugs, anything, right? Just so that a war between these two aspects of me, and what does it mean? What does it mean if I'm this? What does it mean if I behave like this in bed? Can quieten down enough for me to enjoy.
She was exactly what you just described. She was very sexually aggressive. Like it was like night and day. When she used to say some of the things, I was like, is this you telling me this? And I remember at the time she was in a relationship and I guess she was exiting it. And the things that she would say was shocking. I used to sit back and be like, okay. This is kind of wild. This is kind of out there. Like, I think I'm a good looking guy. I don't think I'm that good looking to be told these things at that point, right? But it's shocking because I think from a man's perspective, we're not used to women saying that, right? We're used to men saying it, right? Saying that I want to, like, if we both, let's say we both saw each other, we're both single, and the expectation is usually I'm gonna come up and say something to you. I'm interested in you, I find you attractive, whatever. But from a man's perspective, to hear a woman say exactly what we would say to her, it was kind of shocking. It's like, oh, is this how I sound like? But she would ramp it up, right? So it's interesting that you mentioned that point. Do you see that as well, where maybe some people get shocked at what some of the things that women are saying because maybe society views them as quiet, meek, and they're more receiving of that type of information instead of saying it themselves?
Yeah, so I think there is a bias towards how women should behave in sex because of the porn culture, and because if anyone gets horny and they want to watch something, it's like pornhub.com. Okay, let's go. And that's kind of our reference. Even teenagers learn from porn. And in porn we have usually the basic dynamic where the man is having everything he wants for his pleasure, and the woman, right, if we're talking about like the usual porn between a man and a woman, because there's so much, right, and a woman is there giving over her body and enjoying everything that's done to her, no matter what it is, right, which is not really real. And then she just smiles and she moans, and And that's the generalized idea of porn, right? So when a woman starts to express who she is more and more, and I do believe it's great to set a safe space in which you can be that self, right? Communicating before that. And it's something I brought on the last podcast that was on a communication tool that you can easily use, especially with new partners, especially if you're into exploring something different, just to create a space where you know you have the safe ground and you have the understanding of the other person's boundaries, and they know what your desires are and what your boundaries are, so you can play the game in whichever way you want. Because it's all okay. All of this expression is okay until it starts to cross boundaries. Right? If she crossed boundaries in you, that's maybe when it's doesn't feel so good anymore. Right? But if it's in the zone of, yeah, cool, okay. Maybe it's new, maybe I like it, maybe it's okay, but it's not crossing any of my no's. I said a few things here, maybe not in direct response to your question, but
No, it did because you're absolutely right. Because if you take away when it comes to interaction, if we're going to say men and women, there's of course there's going to be boundaries, right? So what we're talking about is not necessarily boundaries being crossed as two people flirting, right?
mm-hmm.
It's healthy and they're both agreeing to it. When you have, at least for me, when the woman is empowered sexually, a part of it is surprising, but then a part of it's like, ooh, tell me more. Right? Like you now I'm interested. You've piqued my curiosity because you're seeing someone who is confident in a situation that for a lot of us is very vulnerable and sensitive, right? Because so many of us maybe have, let's say, a traumatic experience when it comes to intimacy. Maybe you want to try something, but it'll shut down. You don't know how to communicate it. You feel that it's more transactional, or you're not getting out of it what you're putting in, whatever the dynamic is, right?
Sure.
You mentioned deep feelers, and sometimes we can feel the moment so intensely, right? It's warm, it's everything that we dreamed of. When that happens, and for those who are the deep feelers who feel it in their souls, right? And they wake up the next day, they're like, whew, I want two of that today. Right? What advice can you give to them to make sure that they're continuing to enjoy the moment and maybe they don't get caught up in something else?
Yeah, and it's a topic I love exploring. So on my podcast, I talk about desire and how there is a difference between desire that consumes you and desire that empowers you. And there is a subtle difference. Something that is excruciatingly intense, something that starts to cloud your day, your 24 hours, become 20 hours thinking about the person, 4 hours you time, right? This is when it's good to look at what's underneath. Because as the humans we are, we have two paths to deal with this intensity. One, live it, explore it, get lost in it. Say everything you want to this person, go see them as much as you want, write letters, stay under the window, whatever. You can experience that and you'll learn through this path. And there is another path after you've done the first one and you've gotten tired of the heartbreak, of the amount of sadness and betrayal you carry on your shoulders for years after that. It's a path of realizing and awareness brought to what is this person giving me that I don't have. Because in two people that come together where big attraction forms, it's usually polar opposites, where I've lost something and they have it. Let me give you an example. I had a lover who was A very normal guy, right? 9 to 5 job, no open mindedness, like very grounded. Like, I'm just doing life. I'm building my business. Da, 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 da. Don't meditate. Don't do anything. Cool. Go to my gym. That's it. And I am the person who is like, oh, tell me more. What's the astrology? What is the feeling? What's the emotional realm? I want to learn all about this, right? So we're very different. But in sex, right, in this other realm, I had incredible desire for him and he had for me. From my side, and I can only talk about my side, with him and his presence, what I gained in his presence was the ability to be that naughty, slutty, sexual self and feel safe. And feel like he's inspiring me to be my real sexual self more and more. And I felt like anything else I bring will just be a plus to the intensity, a plus to his, like, obsession with me. So in his presence, I gained access to my sexuality in a way that I haven't had because I was sober in those experiences, not like the ones before when we started the conversation. And it was such a gift. It was such a gift. And when the time to break apart came, it was hard. But when I realized what I gained with him, everything else, like the illusion, fell apart. The illusion thinking that he's the one for me, that I will be with them and they're the perfect. All of that falls apart because our brain will fill in the gaps when we find one thing that is important for us. We'll fill in all the gaps with beauty and flowers and possibility without seeing the reality. And this is what desire and lust can do to us. We will find one thing in a person that we gain that's precious, fill in the gaps, and get into this obsession, right? And deep feelers tend to believe the emotions and everything they feel even more because it's a gift that they have. But until we know how to manage the gift of deep feeling, it can be challenging to navigate such territory, especially with desire.
How can deep feelers manage those feelings and create a safe space to do so?
So it's understanding that, one, you have a gift, nothing is broken. You're not crazy about feeling so deep or feeling so much pain that it makes existence very hard. Like, it's normal. It's starting to almost separate the truth of what you feel and what the other person feels in the presence. Because a lot of the times when we sit opposite each other with our lover, we will get into this incredible deep people-pleasing mode because we can pick up on what, they feel a little bit insecure, so I'll hold their hand, I'll look them in the eyes and then tell them something nice, right? I'll attend to that. Whatever I pick up on, they're stressed, they want, like, and we are focused outside 80%, 100%, but we forget to be self-aware. So one point is to be more self-aware. When you're especially around another person on a date, wherever you are, like, practice a 50-50 awareness. So I am with you here on this podcast right now, and I'm also observing, how do I feel? It's a great question to ask yourself, like, how do I feel? And allow whatever you feel to be as it is without changing it.
I thought you were actually asking me a question, how do I feel right now? And I was like, hopefully she's not asking me that. Or we have to cut this short a little bit there. But no, you're 100% right because I don't think I've consistently asked myself that question.
Mm.
And maybe part of the reason is if I'm around let's say if I'm around a woman, because as a heterosexual man, if I'm around a woman, I ask myself that question. What if I get an answer that can be viewed as not morally acceptable at that time? So, for example, it could be me around, if I'm single, I'm around a single woman. I'm like, how do I feel? Like, okay, she's kind of attractive. We're having a good conversation. I may start to think, okay, is there a possibility that maybe we can get to know each other and hang out? Where she might be thinking, I'm just here for this meeting and then I'm gone. Right? But the fear of maybe rejection or the fear of being viewed as
Of course.
inappropriate, how does that impact us in those moments when we're asking ourselves, how do I feel?
Yeah, it impacts us in a way that it freezes us or makes us be inauthentic in what we who we truly are. And it takes a lot of courage to start to speak the truth of where you're at. And when you've asked me the question about how do you create a safer space for deep feelers, it, let's say in the realm of this relating, and it's grounding your system into safety so deeply within yourself that no matter what the other person says, it doesn't neglect your your belonging to society, your belonging to yourself, your lovability, and your safety. You reject me or not, I still feel I'm lovable, I belong, and I'm safe. And it's a capacity that is built inside the nervous system. It's a capacity that we can train ourselves in. And when we train ourselves in that capacity to feel safe, it's almost as though you feel softness and ease inside, and from that space there comes the thought of, oh, I would love to get to know them, and da da da. And then you listen to that, you apply it to the environment, you run it through your, like, is this the moment to say it? Is this the right environment to say it? And then you say it. And then you see. Because the biggest gift we can bring into this world, in this crazy, crazy world that we see today, is our authenticity. Because authenticity is vulnerable, and vulnerability carries a sweetness into the world that bonds us, that drops all the masks. And it's with courage and with deep rootedness into safety that we can pursue this.
Could then that mean that maybe some people have rejected their authentic self and they're living their life through an avatar or a created version that can fit in by other people's expectations of them?
Of course, I mean, this is the normal idea of how our society goes. I mean, I've walked in the streets of New York. If you don't wear an avatar, you're not safe in the crowd. It's as simple as that. But you can't look into the eyes of people on the subway, especially the ones that get on and off it, every couple of stops, because they'll approach you. They know you're approachable. And it's a code, right? That I was taught by a friend that lived there for 20 years. He's like, don't look people in the eyes on the subway. right? Don't keep eye contact. And there's me like, oh, looking around, smiling. And then, people started to approach and he's like, stop it. And I'm like, okay, avatar mode on. This is what I need to do here. Okay, let's do it.
I developed looking at the ceiling when
Oh,
I'm out in public, right? And I've grown to love ceilings. So I even make a joke about it. I'm like, oh, look at that design up there. Don't you like the pattern on that ceiling? But if you know me well enough, you know that there's someone that could be attractive around me. Right? But to your point, I did that because you're right. Sometimes people would think, okay, does this person want to be approached or are they approaching? But I think as society, as as social creatures, the conversation, as long as it's pleasant and it's respectful, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If someone comes up to me, you, whomever, and they express that I like that outfit, I like your hair, I like your muscles, I like your smile, whatever the case is. Thank you. I appreciate that because there's gonna come a time. I think we need more kind words to be shared. But when it comes to sexuality, I 100% agree. I think people need to embrace that. I think people need to be empowered by it. I think people need to, if you're with a partner and you're like, I want you right now and I want you in this way. Okay, fine.
it's
Let's
so
go.
powerful. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. It's so
Like,
sexy to know what you want. It's so sexy to be able to say and request for what you want and not wait for another to guess their way to pleasing you.
why do you think people are hesitant to just say, this is what I feel, this is what I want, especially to their partners?
Because it's so. When we care so much about what our partner thinks because we love them so much. And I went through this immense block that I overcame through all of these stories that I've told you in the past with the lover and all sorts. That I had this belief that if I were to share my more slutty, naughty self with my husband, he will stop respecting me. And it was so deeply engraved. And I was like, I mean, I'm gonna live with this man for the rest of my life. I cannot not be respected. And it was something that was stuck in my own head. Or sometimes we can be scared about like being made fun of, which is something else. Like if someone doesn't understand our kink or what we want, if they comment in a funny way, right? It's vulnerable to share it, especially with our partners, because whatever they comment will hurt us so much more than anyone else. Any lover on the side, our partners, because they live really deep inside our hearts. But it's also through allowing our partners to love those selves of us, we become liberated. We find space to exist in our own body, in our own life. And I remember the shift when I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm courageously just going to show him one day. And I remember the liberation that happened inside my system. And I felt so free. I felt like I could finally breathe. I felt like, oh my God, that's not a doom in my relationship. There's so much more that we can explore and do and feel for each other now. So it's usually because we care so much that we're afraid.
Care so much of being judged or care so much of something else?
We care about what this person will say about our sexual expression, how they will take it or not. Because, I mean, imagine you're with someone for 10 years, 15 years, and then you want to show another side of you. What's your worst fear? That they're not going to accept it, that they'll judge it, or they'll say, I didn't know that this lives inside of you. How does this live inside of you? You know, I've known you for so long. What is this? And it's like, no, my God, imagine if they say this. But like, But then if the other person loves you and is willing to keep meeting you and who you are and keep evolving and going through life with you, of course they want to know more of you. Of course they want to see more of you, wherever it is. And even if it's a little new or out of their box of thinking, they will find a way to accommodate that sooner or later.
You're right, because I'm looking at it as you can view someone and then based on the way they present themselves, you're like, okay, I have an idea of how they're going to be in the bedroom
Oh my god, all the time.
all the
Yeah,
time.
all
And
the
if they're
time.
different, it's like, who is this?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm following along with you. I got you. I'm following along with you. So now, if there is a disconnection, who's responsible for that? The person who is being viewed differently or the person who's doing the viewing of that person differently? Or both?
Always both. Always both. Always both. There's a subtle responsibility for both there.
How would we resolve that then? Like, if someone thinks, okay, Trent, you look clean cut, I'm expecting you to be vanilla in the bedroom, right? And let's say I'm this wild beast where I'm doing somersaults off my desk into the air and on top of her, right? And she's like, whoa, what the? I'm not built for this. Right? So it's like it's both our responsibilities, but I'm trying to think like what can I do besides what can I do then to tone it down on my end or make it more understandable on my end then since I'm the one who's doing the behavior that is out of line in what she thinks I should be doing.
Right. So we're looking at a partner having an expectation of how you behave in the bedroom, correct? And then that expectation doesn't match. The reality and expectations don't match, and then it's like, oh, okay, I didn't expect that. Now it's different. Right. Okay. One is for the other person to realize that they've built an imaginary idea about someone that is theirs, right? It's that projection that I spoke about in desire, and to be responsible for their projection and realize that they fucked up a little bit. It's okay. We're human. It happens. And I mean, if I can talk directly, like it's you on the other side. Cool, thank you. And if you notice that the other person's like, oh, okay, that's a bit much for me, then it's like, okay, that's fine. Like, what are your desires? And there's a beautiful tool. Can I quickly run it through? Okay, it's called BDSM communication, but I'm gonna expand it. It's going to be T for Timothy. R. Let's begin again. R BDSM communication. T is my extra little juice, but R. What's your relationship status? Both can discuss. What's your relationship status? What's my relationship status? Wonderful. B. What are your boundaries? What are my boundaries? Nice. Now I know. D. What do you desire in this experience? Oh, I want to, do all of these things to you. The other person can say, I want that. I want a vanilla makeout. My boundaries is that I don't want to do this. For example. S, safety. Right? How do we practice safe sex? How do you practice safe sex? How do I? So we've got that cleared. M, meaning. What meaning am I going to attach to this and derive from this if you and I were to have an intimate experience? Will I see you now as my lover? Will I imagine that we are now dating, which sometimes happens in this world? Will you be like my inner circle that I can call at any time of my day and be like, yo, what's up? Let's go for a coffee. Or will it be completely derived of meaning and it will be just a play that we do and then we get on with our life? Whatever. It's good to know because we have expectations around this. Not only about how we are in a bedroom, but what happens after and what does it mean? And then after meaning, there's A, aftercare. After all of this, what aftercare do you wish to have and what I wish to have? Good to know. It's like, oh, I just want us to talk about it, have a coffee, and then I'll need to go because at the time I have a meeting. Good to know. Maybe the other person is expecting like, oh, we're just gonna lie in the bed for 3 hours and caress. Like, it's different, right? And the last one, the juicy one that I mentioned is T, trauma. What is some of your traumatic experience and how does it surface in sexual setting? So, for example, if you see me staring into space and my limbs stop moving, please ask me if I'm okay. Because sometimes when I start to not feel pleasure and realize that something's not working, I freeze and I can't speak. Because of what happened when I was 18 with my first boyfriend, whatever. It can be anything. So please just ask me if I'm okay. Also an important point. Because then you stop the guessing. You create that safe little bubble in which you can play as partners, as lovers, as strangers. And it's cool. It's something you can do over drinks. Or not. Or over tea, if you want to have a more sober experience. But whatever. It can be anything. You can have wine. Talk about it. But that will dilute the expectation, right? And reduce the fuck-ups. Which is nice. To have less fuck-ups in the sexual realm.
Yes, it definitely is. I agree. Yes. I dated a girl that she was a victim of sexual assault. And similar to you, I asked these questions just not with that acronym, but now I'm going to use that going forward. And I learned about that and I was understanding. And then I asked her, I was okay, what necessarily happened? So if we were ever to be intimate, I know that I don't want to do certain behaviors that may remind you of that. So she shared, and I really appreciated that. So I guess it happened when she was in a car. So I was like, whew, I prefer not to have sex in the car anyways. So it worked out. The first time we were intimate, similar to what you just said, right? She kind of just like froze. And then I asked her, I was like, are you okay? She's like, I just need a moment. Just give me a moment. So we gave her a moment. We stopped what we were doing. And then we started to talk about it. And she started to cry. And the reason why she started to cry is because she felt embarrassed, where I thought she was crying because she was remembering. To your point, the communication piece, right? So because she told me what she told me, I automatically went there where her, it was something else. So when we talked about it, I said, oh, I thought that you were crying because something happened. It was reminding you that. She's like, no, I feel embarrassed because I know I caught myself responding in that way and you saw it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I saw it because you told me about it, right? I was like, which one would be worse, me not seeing it and continue doing the action that was reminding you, or me seeing it? And for her, she's like, well, yeah, I appreciate that, but she was still embarrassed. When someone is going through that, since that's like is a personal example, and they've had the communication like you described, and it does come up, and now they stop, right? Does that have a potentially negative impact on the intimacy in the short term going forward?
What do you mean by the short term going forward?
So maybe one party would be hesitant to engage because that traumatic situation came up, even though it described it. If you use me, for example, I can be like, okay, I don't necessarily, this didn't happen, but let's just say it did. I don't necessarily want to engage, have sex with her until maybe there's some time that passes where on her end, she wants to have it. So that's what I mean by the potential negative impact where one party's like, okay, let me take a step back because of what I saw. But the other party's like, no, 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 I'm okay. Let's continue.
Yeah, so I think it's all about how you manage the moment. And I think you did great asking and noticing and then asking and then stopping and giving space and then hearing about her feelings. And then it's all about creating a safe space in which, it's like it's okay to be ashamed. It's okay to go through this. But if you have this conversation before the sexual act, you will already know what you're in for. right? And it's your choice whether you engage or not. Because if we know all of these things about the person through the tool that I've shared with you, and then we engage, we know what we're up for, right? And then if a moment comes out, we know how to deal with that. And then maybe next time when you, after this experience, you can ask us like, okay, when you feel embarrassed or when you feel guilty, I don't remember which of the two you used for her experience, how can I support you through it so that you feel safe to go through your little traumatic moments of remembering and move on from them.
I wonder how the D-feelers who was going to feel that so intensely, I wonder how they would respond to that situation. Because they feel it so intensely, right? So the embarrassment, the guilt, it's on an intense level. And the other person, if they're a D-feeler as well, they're like, oh my God, I triggered this person. I feel bad myself. I feel guilty myself.
Yeah, it's almost like not getting lost in the other person's experience, but becoming a pillar for light, for presence, for safety, for calm. And when even one person is able to hold that pillar of regulation, of safety, and it again goes back to like the building, the growth, the training of your system to be able to feel safe, to be able to separate where you and the other person begins, right? Because that's a deep feeling is a gift, but it can also be a curse because it can feel like I'm feeling everything and it's just so intense. I can't be around people. I can't be in difficult situations. I'm avoiding conflict. I'm avoiding like it can be intense. So learning about where you end and the other begins, how to navigate that, how to create safety, love, and belonging within yourself, even when the other person is going through their own experience. You can feel them and you can feel compassion. You can feel almost for what they would need to feel safe is your calm. But you can always, and it's best to ask. It's like, how can I be here for you right now? And then see.
Anfisa, let me ask you one final question before I let you go regarding sexuality and desire. What are three things you wish people knew about the benefits of desire in their sexuality and why?
The benefits of desire in their sexuality and why? Well, because sexuality is a connection to your life force. Imagine the aliveness like that lives inside of you. You charge your computer from a plug, and without it being charged, it doesn't work. So imagine that your sexuality, your desire, is your plug for your system. And it spreads to the depth of supporting your organs, supporting your mood, mental health, like delaying aging. It's like immense, the positive effects of being connected to your sexuality and to desire in you. But it also, it starts to pour beyond the bedroom into other aspects of your life. Because if you embody courage to ask for what you want in bed and share who you are, it will then show how you walk, how you present yourself and what you do in your work life, how you connect with new people and make new friendships. There's no more people pleasing and trying to downgrade who you are and blah, blah, blah. You're like, hey, yeah, I'm Terrain. I do podcasts and I freaking love it. Lots of people listen to me, And for example, it pours beyond the bedroom. It feeds your life. It makes parenting easier. It makes work easier. It makes love and relating easier. But moreover, it empowers you from the inside as the human you are.